So, Dragon Ball SuperHero is finally released, in the West at least. In Japan it released over 2 months ago. But that aside, now that the movie has come out, we could finally talk about it. By the way, I'll be calling the movie Dragon Ball SuperHero because I hate the double super. Toriyama has even admitted that that was because he forgot. Anyways, should you go watch this movie? That's what this video is about. For those of you who are worried about spoilers, the first section of this video will not include any major spoilers. Even if something was spoiled in the trailers, you're safe here. I'm someone who tries to avoid spoilers like the plague, and I'll respect the wishes of those of you who feel the same, but I will assume you are fairly familiar with the franchise. I will also say I watched this movie the day I'm writing this, so keep in mind there might be some recency bias here. However, I tend to be pretty good at not letting that influence my opinion too much. So with that being said, is Dragon Ball SuperHero worth watching? So, to address the elephant in the room, this movie is entirely 3D animated, which I know for some may be a turnoff. I've never been a particularly big fan of the 3D segments in modern Dragon Ball movies. It looked bad in Battle of Gods and Revival of F. In Broly there were some scenes where it looked okay, and some scenes where it looked pretty bad. However, this movie convinced me of 3D anime and that it can actually work. And I'll say the majority of this movie looks really good. The models look great, and the movie makes full use of the advantages of 3D rigging. Dynamic camera movements and consistent models allow cool little scenes like an over-animated gun spin to have the same kind of panache as an important character shot. The flow of action feels very fluid, and I cannot get over how well the camera is used in many scenes. It feels like the camera is always in motion, and it feels like we're never standing still, which perfectly matches the story's fast pacing, and we're often following the motion of the characters, which gives a great sense of immersion. Honestly, I wish they did more of this. The choreography and character acting are also both great, and besides maybe being overstated a little in some parts near the finale, the special effects are all really fantastic. The movie's color palette is great, perfectly fitting with most scenes, especially the beginning parts, which are very bright and not as heavily contrasted as later into the movie. And it all is just in general very pleasing to look at, coming together very nicely. I would be lying, however, if I said there was nothing negative to say about the visuals. In some areas you can see the more natural weaknesses of 3D models. The best way I can explain it is for the most part it looks like they use the same models. These models are really detailed, and some effect is used sometimes to give a slight inconsistency to the outline, to sort of emulate the line art of the Super Broly movie. This means that whenever the characters are close to the camera, they look really good. However, sometimes when characters are further removed from the camera, all that detail remains, which causes them to sort of bleed together, which makes the models look noticeably worse. Or lines become too thin, which causes the same issue. Normally in 2D anime, since every keyframe is individually drawn, detail can be added and removed based on how far the character is removed from the camera. There's also areas where a radiant shadow is used, which seems to be directly applied to the model, rather than be based on some sort of lighting engine, which looks noticeably worse than the shots where a more traditional anime shadow with a defined shadow outline is used. Mind you, these are minor gripes I have rather than movie ruining experiences. I'm not an expert on these things, nor am I an artist, so don't take my opinion too seriously. The only moment I actually thought the movie didn't look good was on Beerus's planet. I can't really put my finger exactly onto why, but things kind of just didn't look right. The colors weren't as nice, and the character models didn't look as nice as the ones back on Earth. All in all, I would say this movie looks great, far better than I ever expected it to when an entirely 3D Dragon Ball movie was announced. Long gone are the days of the atrocious models. We've really come far in that regard. Although I will say, don't expect this movie to look as good as the Broly movie. It simply doesn't. The sound design in this movie, however, is stellar. All the sound effects and music fit the scenes perfectly, to the point I barely noticed them. Absolutely incredible work. I don't even have anything negative to say about the audio. The music isn't as standout or characteristic as Battle of Gods or Super Broly, but it doesn't need to be. It fits the scenes perfectly and heightens the experience. It should go without saying, but the voice acting is great, as it always is in Dragon Ball. I watched the Japanese version, which was great, but the English version is also really good from what I've seen. Which is honestly super important because the movie has a lot of comedy. The jokes landed for me just about every time. The comedy is well done and is very much a connected part of the plot. Like when something funny is said or a visual joke is made, it doesn't break up the scene as happens with some comedies. For example, in one of the scenes, a character that's famously short wants to look out a window, but without the audience realizing, he actually puts down a stepping stool for himself, which creates a bit of visual humor as the character he is based on had a complex about their height, but it doesn't break up the pacing or mess with the character characters too much. On the topic of pacing, the first 3/4 of this film move at an absolutely breakneck pace, and it's all the better for it. Some things could have benefited from more build-up or more time in the oven as it were, but for the most part, the fast pace keeps you pretty hooked. It treats the more non-combat focused sections just as well as your later sections. My personal favorite parts of the movie were the conversations between the villains and the dynamic between Gohan and Piccolo. Speaking of which, if you like either of those characters, you'll be happy to hear they get a lot of love. Piccolo serves as a viewpoint character for this movie, as everything is explored and shown from his perspective, and I think he gets the most screen time of any character. However, Gohan takes on a more traditional main character role. As a huge fan of both of these characters, especially Piccolo, I couldn't be happier about this, and I hope that we will get more like this in the future. I also really like the villains. I think all of them except for one are really cool. Their personalities are really fun and they come in this sort of great ensemble cast, and it's kind of different from anything we've seen before. They feel unique despite all being based off of previous villains. I also really adore all the little random side characters we get to see, like random Red Ribbon Soldier and Pan's teacher, which brings me nicely to my favorite character in the whole movie, Pan. She's absolutely 100% entirely Goku's granddaughter. What I mean by that is, she is just as much of a little fight addict as her grandfather. I remember back when Goten was introduced, it felt like a big point that he liked fighting the way his dad did, wherein Gohan wasn't as excited about the idea. I hope she sticks around with that character trait more than Goten did. Pan is really cute, her design is great, and just every scene she's in is fantastic. I would not be opposed to having her be the main character of a spin-off movie or even an entire series. If they're going to Boruto it up and pass the torch, Pan would be great as a main character. To avoid spoilers, however, the new stuff this movie adds is somewhat hit or miss. I like the entirely new stuff, but I don't love the new stuff given to old characters. So to end off the non-spoiler section, I would strongly recommend this movie. It's awesome, and if you want more like this, where characters other than Goku get to take the spotlight, this needs to be successful. And when you go to watch it, stay for the end credits scene. You'll enjoy it. Just like if you enjoy this video, you could press buttons. Anyways, spoiler time in 3, 2, 1. I don't like Gohan's new form. I just don't. I don't like the way it looks. I don't think he needed a new form. And if he did, it could have easily been something related to his ultimate/mystic form, which to be honest it might be. The scene in which Gohan transforms is a very direct reference to when Gohan transforms back in the Cell Saga. Back then, Gohan's hidden power unleashed his ascended Super Saiyan form. So maybe because he was in his ultimate form here, maybe this is his ascended ultimate form? I doubt it. But it would be a decent explanation. I also don't love the name that's been thrown around for it. Gohan Beast? I mean, he is in beast mode, I guess, and whatever. The hair is way too big, though. It's clearly a Super Saiyan 2 teen haircut scaled up to match his adult form, but it doesn't look good. Anyways, we got a big, strong, mean, vascular Gohan again. And also on the topic of big, strong, mean, vascular, Piccolo? Literally. I don't know how to feel about it, but something about it just feels a little off. It also doesn't have a name until Piccolo just calls it Orange Piccolo when Gohan asks, so it's not some sort of Namekian secret form or whatever. I also hate the name Orange Piccolo. It's been like 3 forms now that have been named after colors, and it's very much so worn off its welcome for me. I'm personally going to vote for Briccolo, but whatever. His other new form is just him being a lighter tint of green and losing his arm wrinkles. Mid. I kind of hate, however, that both of these transformations were given to Piccolo by Shenron, and one of them was literally something extra beyond what Piccolo asked for. I think I would have liked either of these forms better if Piccolo didn't get 2 forms in a single movie. That just feels off all around. But one of my favorite characters gets to be super strong again, so I'm most certainly not complaining about that. And to round up my list of complaints about new forms or transformations, Cell Max. I know he isn't actually a new form, but it's my video and he's mid anyways. It kind of feels like Doomsday and Batman vs Superman, where a big, unapologetically destructive monster shows up near the end, just so that 2 different sides can work together. Alright, now that I got the necessary negativity out of me, onto the good stuff. Let's talk about the other new villains. Gamma 1 and 2 are great. I love them. They feel very Toriyama, and every scene they are in, I like them. Their fights are very entertaining. They have great personalities and their dialogue is fun. I honestly don't have a single thing to complain about with either of these. Gamma 2 gets a bit more development than Gamma 1, which feels intentional because, well, Gamma 2 dies. I hope they do something with Gamma 1 in the future, which, by the way, Gamma 2's kamikaze attack against Cell Max was one of the coolest visuals in the whole movie. Their creator, Dr. Hado, is also really fun. I actually like him a little less than the Gammas, but his dynamic with Magenta is great. Magenta and Carmine are absolutely hilarious. Almost every gag with either of these characters made me laugh. I love that the Red Ribbon Army tried to make a return. The beginning of this movie is great. It starts us off with a beautifully animated recap of the Red Ribbon Saga back in original Dragon Ball, then transitions us into the new story. The introduction scenes with Carmine and Magenta really got me hooked on the movie. It was genuinely funny and really got me to like those characters. All the Magenta and Hado stuff is just great here, and the misconceived notion about what happened at the Cell Saga is great. The story about everyone being evil aliens that want to take over the planet was funny to me, and I could somewhat understand they would think that given the fact Piccolo is a part of the team. And I liked seeing the scene where Trunks kills Frieza from some random point of view. I guess some rando was hanging out in the desert and pulled out his phone, or it was one of their droids or bugs or whatever. The Z Fighters are great in this movie. I love the new designs. Goten and Trunks finally get to be grown up. The only design I didn't like was Krillin's. We had just gotten away from bobblehead Krillin in the Tournament of Power, but for some reason I wanted to bring it back. I also didn't really like the fact I made him scared again. It feels like he's already had plenty of development for him to not fall back into that. His wife, however, her design is great. I wish Android 18 got a bigger role in this movie, but oh well. She's still really fun nonetheless. The same goes for all the Z Fighters. When they all show up, it's very big and exciting, and Fat Gotenks getting to bash his head into Cell Max was hilarious. I love that they ping-pong him around. Piccolo's whole espionage escapades as a Red Ribbon Soldier was great. I honestly think I love all of that stuff even more than the big final fight. Seeing him go around infiltrate was great. He really took the spotlight in this movie for me. His dynamic with Pan was fantastic, and I love the running plot of Pan helping Piccolo out to train Gohan. Also, I know it's total fan service, but seeing Gohan do the special beam cannon, awesome. Overall, the story, characters, and comedy all work together perfectly, and I just had a fantastic time with this movie. So yeah, like I said, I recommend this movie strongly. It's great. It has its flaws, but every movie does. I'm kind of struggling with coming up with things to say, but I'm trying to get this video out quickly while the movie is still in cinemas. I want people to have the opportunity to have that experience. I made this video not really from the perspective of a movie critic, but as one of a long-time Dragon Ball fan. So if you, a Dragon Ball fan, ask me, a Dragon Ball fan, hey, is SuperHero worth watching? My answer would be yes. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, click buttons, it's appreciated. With all that being said, have a nice day.